What's wrong, Maggie?
Can't find my mouse.
Oh, dear
Oh.
Lord.
There it is. Alright. The Effects and Mitigation of Feral Pigs on Island Biogeography by Cydney and Maggie. So what we're mainly going to focus on is on similarities of feral pigs on islands, as well as the pros and cons to each eradication effect that happened on those islands. Next. Why are pigs so invasive? Well, the thing is that where they live, there's no predator for the pigs. There also is that the feral pigs' hooves affect the ecological processes because the hooves will actually go into the ground and dig up soil from there. The other thing you have to consider is that the litter size for a pig is about 17 piglets per litter. There's around 2 litters per year. And also, this is an old world species, so they're usually called Eurasian pigs. They were brought over by Europeans, most likely Spanish and English, and that's including Australia as well. So where are feral pigs and how are they invasive? The first one we need to look at is Hawaii. So Hawaii, the Polynesians first brought them over, and then Captain Cook brought the European pigs over. Polynesian pigs are actually smaller than the Captain Cook European pigs. One problem that they're finding in Hawaii is that the feral pigs are intensifying the problem of the non-indigenous plant invasion. So the strawberry guava, the pig will actually eat that, and then because the seeds may get in its skin, or the pig might also poop it out, the plant is able to spread more, as well as the feral pig chooses to eat the exotic plants there in Hawaii, allowing more room for the invasives to move in. And one special area they're moving into is the Hawaiian Volcano National Park, and there was a vegetation recovery and pig damage experiment done in 1980. What they did was they had 5 different transects, and each transect would either allow in pigs or not allow in pigs. And outside the enclosure, without the pigs in it, there was a damage caused from upwards between 40% to 70% loss of vegetation, but caused by rooting that the pigs did. But when the pigs were removed 5 years later, you could see that the seedlings became established and the area responded very quickly. The next one we're going to look at is Australia. So Australia, as you can see, very mainly in the coastal areas and the inner areas, they are being attacked by feral pigs. Once again, these were brought over by Europeans when they came because of how the feral pigs, well, at the time, just pigs, were able to find their quick resources, and they actually were free roaming in Australia. The problem is that in the Armen land, there's 3 species of main turtles, and the pigs will actually eat the turtle eggs, which is causing the species of turtles to suffer due to that. You also have humans who are being infected by pigs due to disease. This can be from maybe water contamination or also eating uncooked feral pig meat. You then have the feral pigs that were introduced to Namgaji National Park. This happened in 1959 due to a motorcycle car crash. And the response is that, once again, there's the rooting problem occurring where the plants are digging up and such. And because of this, there's actually a lot of complaints to the park rangers about how bad the park looks due to this problem. Next. The last area we're going to look at is the Santa Cruz Island and Channel Islands. So the unique thing about this is that due to the feral pigs, the golden eagle has now been able to establish on the island. However, the golden eagle has tried multiple times to establish itself on the island, but due to the low number of species they can eat, they haven't been able to live there. But due to how the golden eagle is now able to live there because of the pigs, the golden eagle chooses to eat the foxes instead if they can over the pigs. So because the golden eagles are now eating the foxes, the skunks are now thriving on the island as well. So the problem is that the feral pigs have allowed the eagles to come in, but the eagles would rather eat the foxes instead, and now the skunk is overtaking the island. And you also have the loss of regrowth of the island oak due to the foraging of acorns that the female pigs do during the springtime. Stop.
Alright. Unsuccessful and successful eradication of feral hogs. Alright, so our first area is Australia. It is our largest of our islands. Here, Pigs are regulated through a number of different methods. Exclosures, hunting, trapping, poison, what have you. So exclosures are really not a good way of removing the feral pigs, they more just kind of keep them from spreading. So, and then hunting and poison baiting are used to keep the numbers lower, usually through aerial shooting, commercial harvesting, and hunting with dogs. The thing about commercial harvesting is it tends to target larger individuals, making it a very biased process instead of targeting individuals with high fecundity, because you know pigs reproduce really quickly. And then, so we spread poison usually by the air or on the ground. By the air, it gets many species, gets many individuals at once, whereas by the ground you can target smaller populations. And then the problem with Australia is it's so large and there isn't really a very good way of successful eradication. Really, they're just trying to keep populations low just to reduce their impact on the area. Alright, our next spot, Hawaii. Also another unsuccessful resource. So Hawaii works in the same methods as Australia, but it usually utilizes trapping more often than hunting or poison baiting like they do in Australia. So trapping is useful in Hawaii because it has a higher plant density. There's much more vegetation, there's a lot more remote areas that are difficult for access. Trapping and snares are better for these areas. Some hunting is used, usually not very often because it's harder for the hunters to get in there and find the hogs. Also, there are some behavioral patterns that have been discovered with this access. Is like some hogs will revisit old areas, which makes things more difficult. Then you have to go back to areas that you've already been to find the hogs that they missed. And in Hawaii, this is very easy because there's so much access everywhere. It's so easy for them to just disappear in the heavy brush. Okay, next. All right, so now let's talk about successful eradication. So first islands are Santa Rosa, Santa Cruz, and Chanel Islands. They all utilize the same process about around the same time. So they used also a variety of methods, which is your hunting, trapping, poisoning. But here they did it in a much more organized fashion. So they had like a 3-part method where they started off with just hunting, and then they, as populations either increase or decrease depending on what was going on, they would utilize trapping and they would utilize poison baiting. Also, these islands had ideal conditions because by the time they started, they were going through a high drought, which reduced vegetation, which reduces food for the pigs, so those numbers were also dropping. So there was less numbers for them to have to deal with to begin with. And also, with these islands, they recognized the invasion rather quickly compared to Australia and Hawaii, where it festered. And also, Santiago Island in the Galapagos was another island that was invaded by feral pigs. And this one was successful because even though it was sporadic in the beginning, they did eventually establish an organization and a methodical process. And they utilized many of the methods similar to the islands in California. However, they had to switch from the use of the 1080 toxin like they did in the California islands to warfarin because the dog hunting parties would get into the bait and they started dying themselves. And also the conditions here were favorable because they stopped hunting goats. So the reason why they stopped hunting goats is because the less goat population, the more vegetation there was. And as you know, if there's less vegetation, it's easier to hunt the pigs because it's easier to see them, it's easier to get into the areas where they're like hiding and mingling in. So now let's talk about some pros and cons of the methods. So some advantages of the poison is it can be used for large numbers. It's compensates for trap shyness. So if some pigs are not wanting to go into the traps because they're very wary, the poison, kind of get them because it's just open bait. Exclosures, like I said before, in Australia, they keep populations from spreading into new areas. Trapping is very beneficial for pigs because they're easy to trap. You can put them in certain sites, so if there's like smaller populations, you can put them near there. And it also doesn't disturb the behavior. So with hunting, no, I'm not talking about. And then with snares, it's good for your dense vegetation like in Hawaii, which is why they utilize that method so much. And then hunting is good for high density areas because you can just kind of, lack for a better term, just wipe them out with like a machine gun or something, just hose them down. And then dogs are very useful because they can flush out pigs that are like hiding in logs or under bricks or in holes, that kind of thing. Now, some disadvantages of the poison is unfortunately it targets other species, which is bad because you don't want to kill the native population, which is why you're getting rid of the hogs. And then exclosures, don't really remove them, it kind of just keeps them out. Trapping has limited use because it has to be on flat ground and semi-open vegetation, so it's not good for your dense areas, and you can't have it out in the open because they're gonna be like, oh, what's this? And then snares, again, like the poison, they can target other species. And then hunting disturbs behavioral patterns, so if there's a lot of hunting going on, the pigs are going to move to other areas, so then your methods are going to have to be moved to those new areas now. Next. So obviously the islands were successful because they had favorable conditions, they caught the population early, and they utilized the methods in a organized fashion.
One of the unique things that the Santa Cruz Island did is that they actually split up the island into sections to make sure that they could eradicate the pig and move downward into the island. And one study found that the pig kind of has very horrible eyesight, as well as they use kind of pheromones to try to find the other person. So the idea behind that is that maybe for hunting purposes now, we can start using pheromones to kind of flush out the pig to a certain area.
Yeah, they'll be very good for lure baiting, and also since we know that pigs tend to aggregate to areas seasonally for food, we can also start targeting those areas for your islands like in Australia and Hawaii to maybe have beneficial eradication for those places.
All right. Well, thanks for watching.